Talking about submarine players. Yes, we need to get to the bottom of this. Why are there so many people playing the game in the middle of the ocean? I am really curious, like where that's coming from. Uh, yeah, do I have that? Is it this? Oh yes, here it is, the screenshot. So yeah, I'm always getting stuff like this showing up, just random little coordinates, just like out in the middle of nowhere. Let's see if there's anyone right now, any submarines. So I'll go to my little map. Uh, oh, there's a few guys out here. They're not too far out in the ocean though, just a little bit. Oh, and this guy up here. But but yeah, sometimes there's some just like way out in the middle of nowhere. When I saw one like out here, I thought, oh, that maybe that's Hawaii or something. But Hawaii's up here, and those dots were like down here. So must be a submarine. Or like a crashed plane, like someone crash landed on an island, and all they have is bomb squad to keep them company. Like they can't, and somehow an internet connection because they can connect to my server. But never mind, that theory doesn't hold up. All right. Well, anyway, I'll dive right into my little, actually pretty boring update from this last week, like what I've been up to. Um, so let's see, what have I been up to? I was hoping to have something more exciting to demo today, like a new feature. Like one of the things, I'll just spoiler alert. I know people have talked about adding like a button to plugins to be able to like bring up a configuration um, screen or something like that. You know, if you go into, if you're in the game, into settings, advanced plugins, you know, right now where you can, I don't have any plugins enabled right now, but where you can turn your plugins off and on, basically just adding a little, you know, like config button here for plugins that want it. So, you know, you could bring up options for your plugin or something. So, I know someone started working on that. I forgot who, but I was gonna try to get that in this week, but maybe next week, since I'm running a little behind on what I'm working on. So yes, 1.8 will be great, but right now, yeah, I'm in the middle of, at the moment, 1. Where we are. So go downloads, change log. So still working on 1.7.10, which is basically just kind of a big cleanup release. Um, and the last thing that I'm wanting to add here is just getting um, server connections like really working well. And again, this is super, super boring, but basically, you know, when the game comes up, the first thing it does with all the V2 account stuff is, you know, the first thing it does is it finds the closest like regional server, which, you know, these little pink dots. It pings around, finds which server's closest, and then it, you know, establishes a connection to that. So basically, I'm just trying to get that system as bulletproof as possible, so that it, you know, for one, that it happens as fast as possible, and then for two, so it, you know, it's reliable. Like if you lose your internet for a minute or two and then it comes back, it'll like reestablish the connection and all that stuff, and just kind of keeping that as stable as possible, because it's very much like a foundational part of the game. So I just need it to be like, you know, 100% reliable, or as reliable as the internet is. So right now, I don't know if any of you noticed, but it's been in like a half done state, where if I like launch the game, or actually let me go here. If I go to the devices section, now I launch the game. So it's found a server, it's connecting to a server, and then it'll show up here, which means that the game has connected to a server and everything's good. But if I leave this running for about 20 minutes, the game will disappear from here. Because every 20 minutes or so, the master server basically asks the game like, hey, reset your connection, or like, you know, go connect to somewhere else, or, you know, just restart your connection. Because I don't want the game to be able to keep the master, or the server nodes alive indefinitely. So they force the client to like reconnect once every 20 minutes. And currently, that doesn't like do the right thing. So after 20 minutes have passed, the server asks the game to reconnect, and the game doesn't reconnect. So it disappears basically. You're no longer able to see it. So that's like one of the things, you know, I'm trying to get that working correctly, and just getting all these corner cases working correctly. So that's kind of what I've been up to this week. Um, I know I had asked you, or I had talked to a few of you folks before, like helping me debug this, and I might do that again. There's a few like magical environment variables that you can do, like this BA debug print v2 transport equals 1, or BA account client v2 debug print equals 1. And so like if you set these environment variables and then run the game, you'll get a bunch of kind of debugging stuff, basically telling you like what the game is doing. So it's, setting token, setting the account state, requesting transport agent. Transport agent is basically like the other end of the connection. It's just like telling the nearest little pink dot, like, hey, I need somebody to talk to. And so then, 0.12 seconds later, we got someone to talk to. And so now we're connected to BASN is the pink dot. So sending credentials check, blah, 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 credentials check passed. So it has to go through all this stuff, and then eventually it can basically say like, okay, cool, we're signed in. And then here what I'm doing, I'm basically testing the transport shutdown I was saying, where the server every now and then it says like, hey, you need to reconnect. So for testing, I'm having it do that every like 20 seconds just to kind of stress test this thing. So that's what this is, like transport shutdown warning, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, yeah, that's the exciting stuff that I've been up to, is really boring account level stuff. But as I said, this is something where it's like, it's kind of important to get it right, because then hopefully I don't have to touch it for the next 10 years or something like that. It's like largely the V1 account stuff. Most of that code I didn't have to mess with too much. I wrote it in like 2011 or something. So that lasted about 10 years. So if this one lasts at least 10 years, maybe I'll be happy. So again, I'll probably, I might be pinging some of you guys as 1.7.10 gets closer to being done, just to like have you test like these times. Because I know a few people had tried this, and it takes like maybe 10 seconds sometimes from a opposite place on the planet, which is not great. I don't want people to have to wait like 10 seconds to sign in. So when you bring the game up, like for me, it's like maybe a few seconds, which is it's not bad, but not great. What I'm thinking I can probably do is have it to where it'll maybe take you 10 seconds like the first time you sign in, but then the next time you launch the game, it should be like instant. It'll basically like just consider you to be signed in until proven otherwise. It's kind of like the same thing that happens like if you just lose your internet connection, the game still kind of considers you to be signed in unless it hears from the server. Like if your internet comes back and then the server says like, hey, you're not signed in anymore, then the game will sign you out. But until then, it kind of like considers you to just be signed in. So I might just have it do that when we relaunch the game, just to make it faster. So then it is basically like, it thinks you're still signed in and until proven otherwise. So I might try to get that in there for 1.7.10 also. Just hopefully getting all this sign-in stuff just 100% like solid and hopefully fast. And part of the reason for that is the last kind of big thing missing from 1.7 is getting Google Play accounts working with V2 stuff. And once that's in place, like there's going to be a ton of V2 account connections. So I want to make sure everything is like as bulletproof as it can be before that happens. I imagine that'll probably be like 1.7.11, maybe the next release or two, the next minor release. And then finally on to 1.8 after that. So not too far out. So yeah, so that's my exciting week of working on this type of stuff. Let's see, I'm gonna catch up in chat here. More characters. I guess I was actually like someone asked about a character for like Halloween, because here in the U.S. Halloween is coming up at the end of this month. It's a big thing. Everyone always dresses up and all that. All Saints Day. I know it's it's like a Christian holiday. I guess that's what Halloween came from originally. But it would be like the perfect event to like make some stuff for, or at least like a variant of a character, like a vampire themed one or something, or who knows. So I was toying with the idea of doing that because I have all those like preset characters that aren't being used. So I could like take one of those and make it into something, just something fun for Halloween. But I can't promise I'll do that. But maybe I'll decide to take a few days and do that. But that does mean I have to like make a specific release for the game, and like most people won't see it because they're not running that version yet and stuff. So, it's as I've mentioned before, like 1.8 is going to make it so much easier to make new characters and things like that. So I'm really trying to get 1.8 done before I add new things, but it would be kind of fun to add something new, or at least like a special like holiday edition of Spaz or something like that for, I don't know how long 1.8 is going to take, but it'll still be a little while. So maybe before then. In future state, connection to console will be live, permanent. Oh, like this you're talking about, like the, yeah, and in the future, once the game is running, yeah, you should be able to connect to it on the devices section and all that like permanently, as long as it's up, like it should be accessible. It's a temporary bug right now that it goes away after 20 minutes. Like I said, that's basically the master server just tells it, it's like, hey, refresh your connection, and then the client like refreshes its connection, but it doesn't actually like refresh its account credentials, if that makes sense. So basically, in the server's eyes, it's no longer signed in, and that's why it disappears from like your local devices account page and stuff like that. But that will be fixed. 1.7.10, that should be working permanently. Like I said, I want that. I want all the basic V2 account connection stuff to be as bulletproof as possible. Then we can start building fun features on top of that, or more fun features. I mean, there's already like the console and workspaces and stuff, but a lot more stuff will be coming, like the squads system in 1.9 and stuff like that. Which maybe I started thinking like it could be fun to like get a very basic version of like the squads system in before 1.9, just like a super beta one, something where maybe you even have to like do some secret code to access it or something, just to start like testing it and seeing how it's going to behave. Or other things too, like I've been talking about the sandbox that we need. That's another kind of big missing piece for 1.9, I guess, for the squad system. Or it's kind of independent, but basically being able to run any Python code on cloud servers in a safe way. So yeah, I totally, once this stuff, regardless, once the squad system, once we start testing this, I'll definitely be pinging folks here on the server for testing it. I'm sure it'll be like a secret feature at first or something, like enter a code in the game or something, or whatever. Somehow like enable it for your account. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, like something in advanced, like the enter code section that lets people like activate their copy of the game, where you'll see like the like enter squads mode button or something like that. While it's super like early and janky and stuff. So yeah, definitely need to be kind of careful with this stuff. I don't want to like a feature like that. I've learned like that's not a good idea to just like roll that out to the entire world at once. Not that the game has like a crazy number of users, but it's still like if the majority of people playing the game right now are running into like the same bug or something, that's completely gonna like ruin my day. My server logs will just be like a sea of red. So it's like I definitely want to like proceed carefully with things like that, and slowly turn them on. But yeah, so I know I'm a little wishy-washy sometimes. I mention like squads will be 1.9 and whatever will be 1.8 and all that, but it's like it might be a little bit flexible. There might be like a very limited squads beta in 1.8 or before then, or who knows. Because it's basically like everything has dependencies. Like squads is largely just dependent on this like V2 connection stuff, and then it'll just be building like some pieces on top of that, just like the squads objects and things like that, like managing that on the server. Like this player has joined a squad, whatever. Like message the other squad members, things like that. So that stuff is largely server side, and largely will be independent of the game client version. And yeah, the submarine players, we got to do something specific about that. Hopefully we can detect like when they're submerged versus when they're on the surface, and then we can let them play like single player games while they're underwater. It's lots of important things to deal with.